breath. You're not afraid of death, you know it's working. Smoke is in my eyes, the beauty you have inside. I'm seeing I could be your lightning, you could be my thunder. Come on, move me like your lover. I could be your lightning, you could be my thunder. Come on, move me like your lover. I could be your lightning, you could be my thunder. Come on, move me like your lover.
This is I.a.a, and I'm Alli Marshall. I'm here with Oso Rey, and we're going to be talking a little bit about DIG Festival. Oso's going to be performing Saturday, August 23rd at the One Stop at 9:45.
Yeah.
Got my cheat sheet here.
That's good to have.
Yeah, you got to have a cheat sheet sometimes. But yeah, so you've actually been involved with DIG Festival for a little while. You do some behind the scenes stuff and some performing.
Yeah, I got together with Justin Farabee and Erica Farabee and Jeff Santiago originally like 2009 and kind of put together a festival. I did mainly like graphic design. I just try to make stuff look good is my main thing. That's but yeah, and performed at different types of arrangements, so it's kind of rad for me that to be a part of it, but share like a festival with a bunch of friends, bands, but get to throw in different types of music into it.
Yeah, I've definitely been noticing going over the list of who's performing at DIG Festival that there's a lot of people who play together, a lot of bands sharing members, and this kind of sense of collaboration, which is a neat thing about Asheville anyway.
That one, it's supposed to be like music community involvement, and also like we worked with bands if they're in multiple bands, which happens a lot, that they can all play, which is kind of rad. So then they kind of jump to venue and see each other's bands, but also are a part of it. And so you're kind of running around town, like Debrisa in particular, she'll be playing with like 4, if not 5 groups.
Right.
And literally jumping from one right to the next to do something different, you know? So it's fun.
Is she going to be part of Bear King at DIG Festival?
Yeah, it's booked as Debrisa and the Bear King. And so I had to work with my names on stuff to try to work it out. But yeah, this project is all original material with her mainly singing lead, and I'll do some lead and backup, and it's all like kind of electronic productions, and it's kind of a venue for her to be out front more. You know, she supported so many artists in town and around that this was more for her own self-expression and getting her writing her own songs as well and adding into the production, and she's great at it, so it was really cool, and she's got this opportunity, and so yeah, it's fun to work with her.
Yeah. Is she playing any horn?
Not we've recorded horns.
Yeah.
It's this project is almost all production, like studio production type of project, and she's actually added some horns onto it, but we haven't done it live yet. We drag in the Empire Strikes Brass horns to do live, so but yeah, she might play some horns at this DIG Festival. She played the parts on the record or on the recording, so
yeah. And for those who don't know, Debrisa is also part of Empire Strikes Brass, along with so many other projects. Yeah. She's just one of those great Asheville musicians who can sort of do a little bit of everything, and just a great personality, a really inspiring individual. So, yeah. How did you and she start working together on the Bear King?
I bugged her about it like 4 or 5 years ago. I'm like, let me write you some songs, or when are you going to step out and do your thing? And it took a few years for her to like really want that, and then also the time to put a little bit of time into herself, which a lot of people have that hard time to put yourself first. You know what I mean? You're always looking out for other people, but It's been 2 years now, but it's been like 4 or 5 years in the making, trying to get it together. And yeah, this is mainly 2 years of studio work. You know, we've only played a couple of shows and haven't released any like official anything yet, because we're both pretty much perfectionists and like want it exactly right. And since I realized working with her is kind of like I mentioned it before, but it's kind of like working in an orbit. You're not like passing or whatever. It's like when you get into the same orbit, you hang out for a while, but then it's like off. It might be months, you know. So once I realized that, I've just tried to take the time. I wasn't in a hurry to get the project finished. And what's funny is DIG Festival has allowed us to come back around and have reasons to like finish more recordings and have something to work towards.
Deadlines can definitely be helpful. I heard this great quote lately about creative projects too, and like how perfectionism can just put it on hold forever, and that you should aim for something to be 80% finished.
Yeah.
I thought that was neat. Like there's actually this number, and like to be okay with leaving something maybe not like completely perfect.
Well, perfection can drive people to madness. Mm-hmm. Like I've read stuff about Jimi Hendrix being a perfectionist in the studio and having his drummer just storm out and leave the band, and then he's like, fine, I'll get another drummer, and then that's the problem. But like always having to finish it. But I think if you look at it like some people view tattoos as like a timestamp, so where you were in your life at that moment, and that was your expression of that song then. If I can convince myself of that, I'm much better off. But I'm always learning and always trying to improve, like production and all these things that I know in a couple of months it'll sound better, but I might lose the original feel of the song in the process. So yeah, I think something honest at the moment probably is the best. You know what I mean?
So it's interesting that you've gone, I think a lot of people probably remember Soulgrass Revival, of course, because that was such
Rebellion,
So I'm so sorry.
No, it's all right. There's revivals and rebellions all over the place.
That's why we have cheat sheets.
No, you're good.
Should actually use
good.
it.
You're awesome.
I know, but so Soulgrass Rebellion, and which I felt like had this really big moment in the Asheville music scene, and then for you to go from that into this new project, which is a really, really different sound, is that like, as a creative person, is that really liberating to just go off in a totally different direction? Yeah,
I mean it's not good for your career, but for your personal health and like what you want in your own art. Yeah, it was critical for me. Like I wasn't getting the sound I wanted, and it just wasn't conducive for everybody to go for the same thing anymore. And what was funny, it was like we were recording in Echo Mountain at the time when I realized, I was like, I've been through enough bands, when you're on your downward cycle. And I tell people before, it's like, if you have a plateau and you think you're still rising, and you don't know that your band has plateaued until you're on the other side and you're looking back up. And I feel that way, and like it has to keep progressing, it has to keep pushing forward in a way. And for me, I just wanted so much just a bigger sound. I wanted something that just hit people in a way that I've been finding with production, and like finding with like learning how to DJ, and like just the whole electronic movement where there's so much massive subs being pushed, and there's so much light shows that people are being physically affected by the music in a way that it wasn't before. People listen to it, and you can get into the energy of the band, and that's totally legit. But one thing that's incredible now is that it's actually fixing, hitting people on a more physical level, like the way a bass will thump your chest or different things. It's moving you, and I'm kind of into that.
Yeah. Do you feel like there are aspects of Soulgrass Rebellion that you put into the Bear King?
I've been working on the last year and bringing some of those things back, mainly like my acoustic guitar back into the mix, because when I got into production, I went way heavy into all the bells and whistles of like what you can do, because you can do anything with electronic production. And in the process, I've been now trying to find a way to put some soul back into it, put some air and like organicness that like feels like there's a person behind the sounds, because sometimes it can sound real big, but it also can sound real big and bleak. And like adding human qualities back in, like the airs you make when you're like, I'll add finger picking guitar a lot into the mix, and it's amazing what it does. Just the air of the instrument helps so much, and that's what I've been working on like probably the last year. And like the biggest change in my sound is finding things that's bringing me back to acoustic instruments in the middle of it,
Yeah. How are you approaching percussion? Because that's something that I think can either be very synthesized or very organic.
Well, I've tried to have live drummers and percussion, and it's amazing how busy people are that it actually hasn't worked out yet. I'm like, well, okay, so DeBrisa and I are DJs. You know what I mean? Because originally I was hoping to create the productions and give them to musicians and then have them learn the parts and play it as a live band. But, the best musicians and friends in town that I would like to play with are so busy. Like there's all that I think eventually that may come about. But right now it's just been, I'll take what I do on live drums, my best way to do percussion. And so I feel like it's a little bit of, I'm sneaking a little bit of it in, is that I'll sit with my drum kit and come up with beats. And I think differently on drums when I'm actually playing drums as opposed to hitting beat pads and stuff. And so I'll mimic those and add them and put them right into the, and tap them out as I make them up. And I feel like it's more creative.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like it's just this canvas for you for kind of limitless creativity.
It is. And like I could totally see collaborating with different percussionists. Live, that was one thing. It's big bass, big percussion, and then vocals over the top. Aberdeen horns, just this whole sonic sound would be my goal.
Right. So tell me how that relates with the DJ project, because you've also been DJing around town as Bear King.
I had to learn how to DJ because after the first show, I realized how nervous I was and not comfortable. I've spent 20 years on guitar and drums playing in bands, and even on a bad day, it's not a big deal. I just pick it up and I just do that. That's one thing I have in my life. It's been a constant. And looking at buttons and seeing a computer screen and all this stuff was it put me in a different headspace, and it was tough to enjoy playing live. It didn't feel like playing live. So I kind of put my head down this year and at least took a show a week, a couple of residencies. And so I got really comfortable with playing like DJing music. And in the process, I fell in love with it and then started going to see shows of like people at the top of their game. And it's amazing what they're really doing. Like, it's just like anything. Like, if you're looking at a person that's a master painter, like, if you have the art history, you may appreciate it in a different way. Then, like, it hits you, and you're realizing how they're getting to that point in a different way. And that's what I've spent. I'm like, man, being a great DJ is like, I've said this before, but it's like being a director in a movie and like being playing an instrument. You're like an actor. So you're a part of your deal, but to go ahead and take that step back and be, when you have all access to everything, you're the director and you have all that responsibility all of a sudden too.
Yeah.
Because especially as a DJ that plays everyone else's music, because I've learned that everyone thinks they're a DJ. And so when I'm playing, and if you take a request from somebody, it's like blood in the water for the Sharks, man. They just, and that, because everyone thinks they know what needs to be played next. And I get it, but it's a funny thing. So you have to be good. You have to to me, I'm just like trying to honor the craft of it. And so when I do play my own productions, it translates that I really, I mean it, what I'm doing, And I also don't just hit play and let the song go out,
Yeah. Do you find, coming from more of a roots music place where you were before in Asheville, and to me it sometimes seems like people in Asheville can be really split between being into DJ shows or being like strictly about, it's not a band unless it's got like instruments. And have you found that you've had difficult conversations with friends, or that people who were big fans of Soulgrass Rebellion are now questioning what you're doing?
Oh yeah, I've had close friends be like, like not the DeBrisa and the Bear King stuff, because that's original music, but just like playing out. Yeah, they're like, anytime I play acoustic, they're like, yeah, when are you going to do that again? So there's that, and that for me is something that's coming back around in my life. But yeah, I definitely feel that. And I got into a Facebook conversation I think Josh Phillips put up about tired of musicians, saying that DJs aren't, don't have any talent or this or that, and all you have to do is push a button. And it was like one of these threads that went out like, I don't know, like 100 comments. It was crazy. And it was cool to see, But yeah, it's definitely out there. And I've gone to shows where I didn't know who was playing at the Orange Peel. It was DJs, and it was packed. And I'm like, I have no clue. I cannot keep up with everything that's going on, especially in the DJ world. It's insane. Like, there's so much music out there, and there's a fan base for all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I think that has really changed here a lot in recent years, too. I think that there's a lot more acceptance of it, and there's just also some incredible DJs who live here.
Well, yeah, and then you get like a band like Papadosio that a few of their members live in town, and they're like kind of in between, I guess, doing electronic and jamming and stuff. So there's that crossover, and Gratify just happened, and I know Empire Strikes Brass joined Push Pull up there, so brought in live instrumentation. So because this town has that happening, it's actually, I think you're starting to see a hybrid that's kind of nice. I mean, Thievery Corporation, some bands like that, they can go out and put a band together, and that's make like totally like live sexy music and stuff. But you don't see it very often, so it's kind of this town's set up for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's cost effective too. I mean, it's a lot cheaper to pay one guy than a whole band, and so I think that for some artists it really does make sense to at least be able to move back and forth between a live band or partially live band, partially synthesized, and then also have just the DJ component. So I think it's smart. What's
weird to me is like as I've been DJing more, I've been getting gigs playing drums. Like all of a sudden I get calls. Huh. I don't know why. I don't know what but it's been pretty sweet. So I've been able to switch around and do more of everything. And that's what I'm enjoying the most is not DJing so much. Like I'm not trying to get to the top of the DJ list, you know what I mean, by any means. I just want to be able to play my music the way I like it. But having a little mix of acoustic music, having a mix of DJing and stuff, to me, and then being a front person and being a drummer, if I have those three aspects, I'm a happy camper if I can be doing that weekly, And there's been weeks where it's felt like that. I could see a lifestyle that way,
Yeah. So how do you find the music that you play when you DJ? Are you constantly on the search for new stuff?
Yeah, and that's dangerous because when I knew less, I just knew what I wanted to play in here, and it was easy for me. But as I go further and further, I get exposed to more music, and I start questioning what I want to do. But then it's like when you have everything in the world, you're responsible for that. So it's actually sometimes easier to play like, I just make sure that there's soul in the mix. Like that to me is like, if it could be new stuff, I mean, even think like some of the old like Pretty Light stuff has a lot of soul, the way he would take pieces of old music and whatnot. Mm-hmm. As long as you have that in the mix, that's my main thread. No matter what style I'm playing on a given night, is that there's soul backed in the back of it. You know what I mean? Like it came from that kind of space.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a trip. The more you know, like, yeah, that's why you see genres, because I'm going to do this, because that way you're at least you can keep your mind in that space, like house music or something, And for me, it's like I'm trying to figure that out, like exactly how I want to, put out my vision. My own music is one thing, but when I have to choose from everybody else's stuff, that's the tough one,
Yeah, it is interesting, but I bet it also informs some of what you're doing with your own work.
I would like people, if they were to sit out through the whole night, for one, I get to sneak DBK songs into the mix, and I try to find a good spot for it where it basically, here's my influences, these are the things I'm into, and then get into what I do, and then back. And so if I can do that, you probably learn more about me over a DJ set than a regular conversation, like me talking about it, you know what I mean? Because you could see like, oh, all right, there's Afro pop and old ska, and sometimes I sneak in stuff to see if people are paying attention, and sometimes like that, you're like walking out on a limb, because it could be the deal breaker, and everyone clears the floor, or it could be like, oh, it depends on like the mood of the crowd, because I'll try to sneak in some ugly songs for fun.
Nice. Well, we got to hear some of your new work at the beginning of this interview, and you're also going to perform a song for us, right?
Yeah, I kind of thought it'd be cool to like that. That song is called "Good Company." Mm-hmm. It was on that Josh Blake queued up at the beginning, and I was going to play a little bit of it just to kind of show how it starts and then where it went to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, cool.
I keep good company. I got friends in high places. Good company, good company. I got friends in high places. Smoke is in my breath. I'm not afraid of death. You know it's working. Smoke is in my eyes, giving me tears I hadn't cried. You know it's working.
Stuff like that. So it's just a hook, you know what I mean? I'll take a hook and I'll work around verses, but once I get a hook, I'll lay that down and I'll try to come up with big beats, and then I'll try to sneak my acoustic guitar back in it and find a spot where it sits. But then it's like, this project right here is what I always dreamed I could do. And like in 20 years of playing in bands, you start on acoustic guitar and you hear all the other instruments, and you work with your musicians and what they have to bring and their limitations, and so you kind of stick with it because that's your band, you know?
Right.
But in this case, it's whatever you hear or think of, I can put it in.
Yeah.
And that's total freedom, so it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that is really cool. Well, thanks so much for sharing that with us. Looking forward to seeing you at Dig Festival again. Oso Rey, Debrissa and the Bear King.
Debrissa and the Bear King.
Yep, performing Saturday at the One Stop, 9:45.
Yeah.
And you are watching I Am AVL.